pre-Senior Bowl top 10 quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft. On today's episode, we're going to tell you how and why Will Howard might be the next J.J. McCarthy for the 2025 NFL Draft. This and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm a senior and offensive draft analyst over with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez, director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Bengal Tigers. Guys, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. And shout out for being our every single dayers. On today's episodes, guys, we're ranking our top 10 quarterbacks pre-Senior Bowl. You know what we're going to do from 10 to 8, QB 7 to 5, and then we're going to close this thing out with our top 4 QBs. Where do we stand? Where are we aligned? Where do we have differences? We'll get into all of that. But coming up first, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keith, QBs 10 through 8. Let's go through your list. We'll go from 10 to 8, then to get into mine. Well, at number 10, you have Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard. At number 9, you have Florida quarterback transferred from Wisconsin, Graham Mertz. At number 8, you have Washington's quarterback who transferred, I believe, from Mississippi State, maybe? Yeah. Mississippi State, Will Rogers. For me, Keith, at number 10, I have Curtis Rourke from Indiana. At number 9, I have Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. At number 8, I have Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. Keith, let's start because some of the names that you brought up, Graham Mertz. Talk to me about Graham Mertz real quick, Keith. Tell us why Graham Mertz had made your top 10.
Yeah, DP, I thought that at Florida, Graham Mertz operated in good spurts, right? And in Florida, I think it has been a up and down situation. Obviously, they have the young guy, DJ Lagway, coming in now. But I thought that there were moments that you've seen Graham Mertz and some of the natural tools that he has, right? Like, adequate arm talent. He's a mobile guy. He can move around in a pocket, things like that. So that's why, and he's just off the radar completely because he got injured, right? I can't remember if it was an upper body injury or a lower body injury, but he had an injury that was a season-ending injury. That was his last year, kind of last hoorah situation. So he enters the draft without a lot of buzz around his name. But I think that there is some talent for him. You're talking about bringing him in, into rookie camp, training camp, things like that. Can he be the third quarterback on a roster? I think this is a guy that will get NFL snaps at some point. Could that be due to injuries in front of him? Something like that. But definitely a name to be notable of. And when I watched Florida, I seen bad, but I seen some things there to where I feel like he can do a couple things on the NFL level.
Yeah, I mean, and he's 6'2", about 215. This was like a 4-star recruit that came into Wisconsin.
Yeah, highly touted. Yep.
I've been on brand saying I wish these Big Ten teams like Iowa and Wisconsin would get some of these 4- and 5-star quarterbacks. But Wisconsin got one. It just didn't work out for him. You know what I mean? But he was a talented kid coming out of high school and everything. And I had hopes for him. I remember watching him in the summer. I was like, okay, there's some NFL throws and traits here that he could be successful at the next level. It just didn't pan out because, like you said, he ended up getting hurt. Keith, for me, Curtis Rourke at number 10. I think this guy. I haven't truly landed on a comp for him yet because I think he's like 6'5", like 230. I think there was a report after the season said he played on like a partially torn ACL all season. I remember he did have like a big bulky knee brace, but I'm like, if you played on an ACL tear the entire season, that's a different level of Iron Man type of mentality. You know what I mean? Most guys, they get the surgery, they shut it down. But he had an outstanding season. He led them to the playoffs, right? I think for Curtis Rourke, we're not going to see him. Well, I think he's going to the Shrine. So if he does go to the Shrine, that'd be a good opportunity for NFL teams and scouts to get eyes on him. Arm talent is above average to me. He has some velocity that when he can drive throws at times. He's just not mobile. You know what I mean? Like he moves the pocket. Like if he's protected, especially if he has that great wall in front of him, like a trio of interior offensive linemen, he'll step up and move and slide. But like you're not getting a lot out of him from a creativity standpoint. If the pressure leaks through, you get free runners. He's dead to rights. He's kind of a statue in that regard, and he's pretty much a throwback. I think RG3, Robert Griffin III, tweeted out like the day that kind of almost like the age of the throwback pocket passer is dead now. He was like, we're not going to see too many of these guys, or teams covet these guys. In the playoffs, the only guy that was a true pocket passer was Jared Goff. We kind of saw how that turned out. You know what I mean? He didn't play the best and things of that nature, and the guy across from him could move, and he could do different things as well. So it's he can move a lot. He can move very well in Daniel. But yeah, I think Curtis Rourke, I think he has an NFL future. I think he could be a QB2, QB3, and in the right situation, he could start. He kind of reminds me of those Kyle Shanahan type of quarterbacks. Like he's not gonna give you much from. And that's how Kyle likes his quarterbacks. Like he doesn't want the RG3s and the Trey Lances and the Cam. He doesn't want those guys. He wants the guys going to run the offense as he designed. Hey, if I call a naked bootleg off a play action, hit the flat route, right? That's the guy right in front of you. Just hit it. Let's get what's there, stuff like that. He doesn't want you to look at it, peek upfield, take a risky shot, or try to run around and be Houdini. Like, he doesn't like that stuff. So I think Kyle Shanahan is one of those situations where, again, the whole Brock Purdy situation, what do you have behind him? If something happens, I think Curtis Rourke is a guy that could fit that San Francisco 49ers model and what Kyle Shanahan likes as a quarterback. I think he could be a starter, but it's got to be the right situation with a good offensive line.
Yeah, DP, I'll say this. Obviously, and I think that's a good spot to just, quickly head this conversation. But when I started going through this list, I said, man, like, you see the impact that Drew Aller, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, Miller Moss, right? All of those guys going back, you see how it impacts the
guys
depth
we thought would be top 7 quarterbacks in this class right now.
Easily, right? Like, and then guys like Graham Mertz don't even make my list, right? Like, they could be priority free agents. But when we started going through, I'm like, man, like, those guys going back to school really reshuffled the deck as far as other guys having opportunities to move up. Absolutely. Because it impacted the depth. And I wonder if that's like, teams need quarterbacks. The depth is also not there. I wonder if that's going to push these guys up even more.
Could be. I mean, you think, like, especially day 2, right? I think day 2 to me is a sweet spot for teams that want to, like, get a quarterback. I don't think if you miss out on Cam or Shador, I don't think you reach for a quarterback in round 1 unless you are completely sold on that guy. And if you're at the top of the second round and a team like the Ravens or somebody wants to trade back, and they say, you know what, I value that fifth year option. I believe this could be our guy. Then cool. If you're going to take him pick 33, what's the problem taking him at pick 28, right? It's not much of a difference. You just trade up and swap out some draft capital and get that 5th year option for a guy you really like. You know what I mean? If you're going to take him at the top of the second, I think that's the sweet spot, because then teams that need a quarterback like the Giants and the Raiders, they can just go BPA, go best player available, improve your roster. And what do we always say, Keith? And I feel like this should be a mantra for all NFL teams. Let's make the roster ready for you. That's not like, let's get the weapons, the O-line. Let's try to get as much done as possible before we select you, rather than, you know what, we really need a quarterback. Our team is terrible. Like, we have nothing going for us right now, but let's draft a quarterback. Let's put him out there to get David Card and destroyed as a rookie because our O-line's bad. Our receivers are bad. That's it. Matter of fact, Keith, the situation Justin Fields got drafted into, they had an awful offensive line. They had no wide receivers. They only had like a few running backs and a tight end. That was it. And they had coaches that weren't going to be there. Like, the GM knew they weren't going to be there. The owner knew, by the time week 18 gets here, you're probably not going to be in the job, bud. So it's like, yeah, day 2, I think we might see a run on quarterbacks. And it's all out of necessity, Keith. Just because teams don't want to leave the draft, like, you know what? How do we tell our fan base we don't have a quarterback, but we're not going to take these guys because we don't like them enough to take them on day 2?
Yo, with DP, that's 10 through 8. Let's start getting to the spicy stuff, right? We have coming up quarterback 7 through 5. We have our dueling list, right? So the lists are not going to be the exact same. This is going to be fun. Y'all can tell us if y'all agree or disagree. We're going to talk about quarterback 7 through 5 coming up next.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 back in bonus bets to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has got you covered. How can you get in on the action? Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com to join today. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. QB 7 through 5. Keith, at number 7, you have Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. At number 6, you have Quinn Ewers out of Texas. At number 5, you have Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon. At number 7, I have Quinn Ewers out of Texas. At number 6, I have not Jackson Dart. I actually have Will Howard at number 6. And I have Jalen Milroe at number 5 right now. Keith, talk to me. Jackson Dart at number 7. How do you feel? We will see him down in Mobile next week. He's got a chance to make us believers again, Keith. Let's tell the people we were original believers in Jackson Dart. We were the OGs believing in Jackson Dart for 2 years.
Yeah,
prior to this,
I was an OG believer and I was an OG leaver. DP, I was both of them, right? And so I got off of this train a long time ago. But giving everybody a fair opportunity, right, in the Senior Bowl is a great opportunity for guys to showcase their talent. I'm looking at this from the perspective of what do you look like outside of Ole Miss? Because at Ole Miss, the issue is that I had some of the same question marks that I had with Matt Corral, right? Just is what you're doing based off of the system, right? When I see you hit nothing but wide open passes, I don't know if you can thread the needle on some throws. There's some crossing routes where you can throw with anticipation, or if it's a seam route and that tight end or that slot wide receiver is bending behind that linebacker and you let it go as soon as he gets behind the linebacker, he doesn't have to be wide open, right? Like it's those type of things that I want to see at the scene, but I want to see his arm strength. What does his arm talent truly look like? I don't know if it's below average, or good. Like I feel like it can be either of the three, DP. So all of those things are what I want to see from Jackson Dart. Obviously, the mobility capability is there. So I feel good about that, but I just want to know who he is, because I feel like when you have these type of offenses, you really don't know who the quarterback is. You just know that they're operating an offense, and we always talk about the lane train on here. Obviously, one of the best play callers and play designers in college football, and maybe in all of NFL, period. I mean, all of football, period, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see him operate outside of the confines of what the Ole Miss offense is.
No, I'm not mad at that at all, Keith. I'm not mad at that at all. For me, looking at Quinn Ewers, Keith, this is a guy that's been polarizing. I still believe that he could be a good pro quarterback. I still believe he can. You know what I mean? He's accurate. When he's like in a zone and he's dialed in, like he can slice up a defense accuracy-wise. And like if you put like from an accuracy standpoint, I think he's top 3 in the class. You know what I mean? I think he's top 3 in the class off of pure accuracy. Like, I think he's one of the more accurate passers, especially from a clean pocket. He's dialed in, things of that nature. But it's mostly, for me, is the mental. Like, there's too many times I just feel like, Quinn, what are you doing? I'm asking myself that watching film. Either he's locking onto his read. We talked about it, right? Like after the Ohio State game, it's just like he's too casual in the pocket. I feel like his clock doesn't have batteries, Keith. Like I don't feel like this clock has batteries, so it can't go off, right? It can't give you the loud, annoying noise. Like all iPhone users know that loud, annoying alarm noise, and you set your alarm in the morning, right? It's very chaotic. I don't think his clock has batteries or his phone is turned off. He doesn't get woken up in the pocket, and I feel like if he started doing that, and then the mental mistakes of stepping up into sacks. Right? Like he did it against Georgia multiple times in both games. He did it against Ohio State early in the game multiple times. Like he's a guy that if he doesn't fix that, Keith, one of the biggest difference going from college to the NFL, these are grown men with families. If you think an offensive lineman going to sit there and they got 3 kids, a wife at home, and mortgage and all that, and let you make them look bad because you're stepping up in the sacks, it's going to be a difficult conversation in the locker room. Hey, man, you need to stop doing this because you're putting us in conflicting situations. We did our job. We got to our landmarks. We blocked our guys, and you stepped up in it. But I think for him, I wonder if it's a thing of coaching, like getting him with a coach that drills that stuff to him and say, listen, you did this at Texas. This will not work in the league. And I think if you get him in the right situation, I think we've talked about like Sean McVay and like him sitting behind Matthew Stafford. I think that even though he's a veteran guy, he's played a lot of ball. Quinn Ewers as a quarterback, I think absolutely should sit for a year and just watch a seasoned veteran operate an offense. Because if he can get those aspects out of his game, he could be a 7-8 year starter in the NFL. I think he could be. But at the end of the day, like you gotta clean that stuff up, man. His accuracy is legit, but the other stuff, you gotta figure that out.
Yeah, I agree with you, DP. And there's a lot there. And when you want to be out on him, you know what you've seen, right? Like in the past years with him. And when he's on, like you wanted to move as high as a 2nd round grade on this guy and be like, hey, you talk about Kyle Shanahan. This is, to me, the prototype Kyle Shanahan, 100%. A very smart, intelligent quarterback, above average arm strength, can throw with anticipation. You know, he's somewhat mobile, a gamer, has a lot of experience in games played, right? Like he's been in the spotlight since he was 15 years old, right? Texas football, like everything with Quinn Ewers, I just think is a huge thing, just overall, and something that you look forward to as far as what is he going to be in the NFL? And I think it's going to be an interesting spot. Obviously, the Arch Manning thing played a huge part of it. And I just think it looks like he's not as happy anymore there, right? Yeah. And you wonder if a change of scenery is actually best for him.
Could be. I mean, when you have Arch Manning sitting behind you and I'm pretty sure, like, again, I'll go back to it. It was evident from the beginning of the season when those Dr. Pepper commercials came out and he's like, I don't need a backup. I got to the
yeah. You know what it was? I think it was one of those things that it was funny until it wasn't funny no more.
Until
right?
it wasn't funny.
It was funny in the off season, but then when you got pulled, right, and like it was funny to make a joke of it, but then because you didn't think that was going to happen, but then when you got pulled in the Georgia game, and then everybody going crazy over Arch Manning, every time Arch Manning does anything, the whole entire fan base plus your teammates plus everybody else gets excited, right? Like I think it's clearly one of those things where it was cool potentially when you were doing the Dr. Pepper commercial in the summertime, but when that happened, it wasn't funny anymore, right? It's like, okay, this is the real situation.
No, you're right, and I think that, like you said, to see the adulation and it's one thing for the crowd to get hype, but then to see the momentum and the vibe from the teammates, they get perked up, they amped up a little bit more when Arch took the field. Yeah, Quinn's probably sitting there like, yeah, bro, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? I've been the guy for the last 2 years or whatever the case may be. I haven't made the bone crushing mistakes and different things like that. But nonetheless, I just look at him, man, and I say, you know what? Like, I think he could be a good NFL quarterback. He talked to me, Dylan Gabriel. We're going to see another. This feels like half our list is going to be in Mobile. But Dylan Gabriel down in Mobile, man. Like, what did you see on tape with him?
I'm excited to see Dylan. Because ultimately, I think Dylan is identifiable floor, right? Like I know what his floor is, and I feel like I know what his ceiling is. Like, and I think that his floor, like his floor is a career backup, right? That's going to come in, do all the right things, can spot you in certain moments, XYZ. I feel like the ceiling is he's an NFL starting quarterback, right? And in the right scheme and right situation, he's going to execute. I want to see like I said, and we said this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I just want to see the arm talent. If the arm talent is above average, then I feel like I'm buying this. Once again, it's a guy that's played a lot of football in a lot of different situations. He's been a leader. Like I've talked with him, right? We went to Oregon a couple different times. I've sat down with him, talked 10, 15 minutes. High character guy, a guy that you don't mind giving the keys to. He understands the perception of football, right? And what it means, what you have to do to get things done. So I'm buying into him from the character standpoint. Everything else is, and then you see spurts of him being accurate with the football, and he can push the ball down the field at times. And I like the fact that he didn't necessarily have big-bodied wide receivers, right? He was giving small guys a chance, right? Like with Ted Johnson and Evan Stewart, right? And I think if you get to the NFL and I have these big 6'3", wide receivers, like I can do that too. So I told you, the Miami Dolphins, I watched some Oregon stuff. I got to put the film breakdown together at the Draft Network. There are a lot of similar things with what Miami did and what Oregon did also. So there's certain elements to Dylan Gabriel that I really like as a quarterback.
No, same. And I think, like you said, identifiable floor, identifiable ceiling. So it's like it's literally a situation where, as a scout, you're talking to your coach about, like, we know what we're getting. Like, this isn't an unknown, uncharted situation. We know what we're getting with a Dylan Gabriel, and I think it just fits him backing up Tua. I think it's perfect.
Yep, no, I agree 100%. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. What we have coming up, the top of the list. Yes, quarterbacks 1 through 4. We're talking about that coming up next.
Therapy is a game changer. It can help you manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually in 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show support to the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL SPACE80. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. QBs 4 through 1, our top 4 quarterbacks. Keith, at number 4, you have Ohio State national championship quarterback Will Howard. At number 3, you have Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. At number 2, you have Cam Ward out of Miami. At number 1, you have Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. At number 4, I have Syracuse Kyle McCord. At number 3, I have Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. At number 2, I have Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. At number 1, I have Cam Ward. Keith, I want to start with Jackson Dart. I agree with everything you said. And I think, remember, I went to Panthers camp when Matt Corral was there. The arm talent and stuff that we saw on tape, the snappy release, the arm angles, all that was legit. It was true. Like, he can spin it. It was removing him from that Lane Kiffin offense. And he did not look like he picked up an NFL playbook well. He couldn't identify coverages well. He struggled fitting passes. He struggled with confidence throwing against man-to-man. And I saw him picked off in camp, different things like that. I was like, then I think he ended up getting – it was him, Baker Mayfield, and I think Sam Darnold. Yeah, and I was like, this is a crazy trio of quarterbacks to be battling out with Matt Rule as the coach. Man, have times changed in Carolina. But, I just looked at it and I was like, yeah, it's going to be either Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield. I was like, I walked out of camp knowing it was never going to be Matt Corral. I was like, there's no chance unless he gets the reps and you just deal with the bumps and bruises until he picks it up, if he picks it up. With Jackson Dart, I feel like he's a more aggressive passer than Matt Corral was. Watching Matt Corral, the running ability, the toughness, and what he brings, he also has those arm angles. I've seen him beat free runners, throwing, dropping the arm angle, throwing around them, things of that nature. And he just, a lot of the things that bothered me with his tape bothered me with Bo Nix's tape. And then we saw, granted, it was a perfect alignment. The stars aligned for Bo Nix. Going to Sean Payton, going to Denver with him.
Giving Sean Payton credit, because I went back and looked at their offense. I give, and this is when I say this, I'm not knocking Bo Nix either because he's
Yeah,
executing, but I give Sean Payton credit also because that's not the same thing he did with Drew Brees. There are college elements to that Denver Broncos offense to where there's a lot of still take the D shot or take the under or take the underneath stuff. And I think it like in spreading it out, right? And so that's when I really looked. I'm like, nah, this is actually a fun offense, and I give Sean Payton credit that hey, if you're committed to a quarterback, we always say this: do the things that he does best. Like don't take him and do the things that he's not well at, right? Do the things that he does best, and that's what's going on in Denver. Which
I think Keith, that would be a universal thought process. Is to just scheme it up around the quarterback. I think he throws with good velocity. He knows how to mix in touch when he needs to, and he can throw on the move out of the pocket and different things like that. I think the Senior Bowl is going to be big for him. I see parallels with him and Bo Nix, and I was like, okay, I'm not all the way in on him, right? But I'm in that halfway point. I was like, I could see this going either way. He's got to show me something to Mobile, though. He's got to go to Mobile next week, Keith. He's got not. I'm not saying you're going to be the best quarterback out there. Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. wasn't the best quarterback out there last year. It was Spencer Rattler. But most of those guys got drafted way higher than Spencer did. He just got to go out there and play well. Play well, handle that playbook. All the stuff I hear about him from a work ethic standpoint, they say he's a workman. He puts the work in. He's going to work hard. Yeah, go better be in your playbook from the moment you get it in Mobile and learn it, because handling those NFL concepts, when we get to the one-on-one stuff, Keith, I could care less about. I couldn't care less if he throws, how well he throws in one-on-ones. I'm going to be paying so much attention to those 11-on-11s. When they mix up coverages, they look like they're in man. They cover one. It's actually zone. Like, how do you handle that changeup when the offense isn't RPO-based, isolated one-on-one routes and different things like that, and you won't have Trey Harris, but you have some good receivers? How does he handle it? I can see this thing going either way, but I have him as QB3. I still like Jackson Dart. I'm just not sold.
Yeah. So you have Jackson Dart at QB3. So go ahead again. You have Cam Shador, Jackson Dart.
Cam Shador, Dart, and Kyle McCord.
Okay, and then Milroe's at 5. Okay, I'm gonna get into Will Howard, DP. Because we wanted to wait, obviously, to the national championship game just to even have this conversation. And there are a couple of things I want to say. Obviously, I have him as my QB4. The first statement I have to make is that Will Howard can have the same meteoric rise that J.J. McCarthy had. Because up until this point, J.J. McCarthy was just a reserved guy. Everybody looked at him in confines of the Michigan offense. Nobody gave him real credit for operating the offense. And then it wasn't until people actually went back and cut the film on and said that, there are a couple of NFL throws that J.J. McCarthy is making.
I bet you they feel much better about J.J. watching that Michigan passing offense this year. I bet you they appreciate J.J. more this year.
Yeah, 100%, right? And I think we were one of the first people on this podcast to be like, no, go watch the Michigan State film with J.J. McCarthy. And I feel the same way about Will Howard, that Will has true arm talent. Like I think when you talk about the physical tools, he has it. You're watching him as a gamer, right? You're watching him as a winner. You're watching him as somebody that loves the game of football and loves to compete. That stuff is going to sell to general managers all day long. 1-year transfer comes in, wins a national championship. Ohio State went through stuff. He stayed steady, right? He loves the game of football. Ohio, I think he's from Ohio or Pennsylvania, right? Like just that kind of Pennsylvania, Midwest, grinded out, tough, gritty type of young man. And then, because I know the conversation is also like, hey, well, he had so many different weapons, right? You got Jeremiah Smith, you have Emeka Egbuka, you got 2 running backs. And I go down the list, and I'll start with my guys so everybody don't think it's a shot at them, right? Joe Burrow, he played with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, right? Yeah. Even at Cincinnati, he plays with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. C.J. Stroud had Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, a young Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Plus Travion Henderson still there. Right. And then when he got to the NFL, it's Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson is on the bench. John Mechie is trying to shake back, right? Damian Pierce, you have good, like all of these quarterbacks, especially if you go to a good college program, you usually have NFL talent at wide receiver. So I don't want to say that he can't play the game of football based off of that. You look at Tua Tagovailoa and the 4 guys that he had on his roster. So It's just, I think it's a year after year thing. Like most of the times, these college teams are going to be loaded. Now you take them and you isolate them out of what's going on with the college team. And I see a guy with raw tools, right? They're like, hey, this guy does some things. And that's why I say it gets me to going that if it's like, okay, cool, I'm out on Will Howard, but we believed in Trey Lance, right? Like, what's the difference, right? Oh, like I'm trying to understand that, right? Like, it's like, okay, cool, this guy did it for 1 year. Will Howard's played college football for 4 or 5 years. I just think that there's something there to where I think that his stock is going to blow up. And we talked about it already. I can see the Josh Allen comps coming. He is probably, you're talking about singularly, he's in the top 5 players I'm most excited to see at the Senior Bowl. I just want to see what he's going to look like. I want to see how good his arm talent, because I can see it on film that it's there, right? Like you can tell he has arm strength, but I want to see it and feel it to be like, you know, what Malik Willis was like, oh no, he can rip the football, right? I want to see what Will Howard does.
No, 100%. I remember those Malik Willis throws. There were tight ends that wouldn't catch it with their hands. They were letting it hit the chest plate, you know, and you could still hear the thud. Yeah, I think with Will Howard, like, and I felt like I was higher. I was one of the higher guys on him initially, even before this run. I had a 3rd round grade on him. Then he hit like a lull in like the middle of the back stretch of the season. They were still winning the games up until Michigan, but he just didn't play great. And I was like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, then I came on, I was like, I don't know. I feel like they got the training wheels on the offense. It's a lot of like
that's why
manufactured stuff, and
that's why I compared it to JJ McCarthy, because it was a lot of the same conversations, right? Is that he's just the game manager and he doesn't have any real talent. He's the guy that they're actually putting training wheels on him because they're afraid of him messing it up. And then, like you said, you went to the film, right? Because Michigan at that time was in your region, right? And he was like, I think JJ could play, right? And I was like, I agree.
Yeah, I think with Will Howard next week is going to be big, because I think what he can't do is have a bad week in Mobile. Like you gotta compound this with a good then that's where that conversation to what you talked about with the talent around him. Like, you know what I mean? Throwing to like Jeremiah Smith is Julio Jones 2.0. You know what I mean? Like he looks like the dude, like the way he plays, the play style, the physicality, everything, the athleticism. For Will Howard, I think it's the same thing with Jackson Dart. Just removing him from the weapons, removing him from Ohio State. Now, Will Howard, you tell us who you are. You show us that what we saw at Ohio State, that championship run, it wasn't just indicative and all of the supporting cast. Show us that you played such a major part in that and make the same type of throws. Like, I think he has all of the physical tools and the ability. I remember telling Ohio State fans, like, during the summer, I was like, the way Kyle McCord played last year, I was like, I think Will Howard will be better than him. Now, Kyle McCord with the Syracuse and lit the world on fire. You know what I mean? Like, he lit it up in Syracuse. If you got that Kyle McCord in Ohio State, you probably still win a national championship from the way he was throwing the ball. But at the end of the day, I always felt like that Will Howard was better, you know, coming into the season. So I believe in him. I think he can. I'm looking forward to see removing him from, like you said, remove from the weapons. Well, that's not the conversation anymore. It's like, okay, what did you do in Mobile? How did you showcase yourself? Because as much as we're going to still hold on to the tape, that week in Mobile, seeing them up close and personal is going to play a big role in his evaluation. Because if you have a subpar week, people are going to be like, okay, we removed you from Emeka. We got you away from Jeremiah and Chip Kelly and Carnell Tate and those 2 backs and G. Scott at tight end and all that. And you didn't play as well in Mobile. I know it's probably like second day of practice is typically when you want to see quarterbacks take that step forward because they're getting used to everything. So I think Will Howard has a big shot to either be the Will Levis of this draft, where he's drafted top of the 2nd round, or Keith, he has a strong week in Mobile off of a national championship. He's going to interview well, as you saw after the game. Every interview he does, he's very well spoken. This could be a 1st-round guy if he does what he needs to do next week in Mobile.
Yep, DP, fire it up, baby, fire it up. And guess what? If I'm wrong, I come talk to my people and tell them I'm wrong. And we had a conversation about it. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. And you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we're going to get into some of these cornerbacks. That's going to be down in Mobile, Keith. This is a good cornerback group. We're looking at some of these wide receivers. Who are the guys that have to defend them? Whose stock could be on the rise? We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.